of the great Jamestown-Olean rivalry, where Greg Mullavey and Jake Pitler, the Olean pilot, were part of the color and hot civic pride that permeated the league. It was the early 1940s when Pitler and Mullavey were managers against each other in what was then called the finest Class D league in baseball.
Do you remember Jake Pitler?
Yes, yeah. I was never very close to him, but certainly by name.
Well, I can remember my dad talking. They used to stage, and then when they get serious, plan to get increased fan support. They would have arguments with the umpires. And then they argue amongst themselves. You know, Jake and my father used to go at it, and they would plan what they do and what if they do this. And then the papers would be full of this stuff, and boy, the fans would come out in droves the next night.
So like a wrestling match, they were the...
Well, there was an element of theatricality, a little showbiz in both their veins.
Well,
I think some of that rubbed off on me.
Wanted.
I remember them arguing, you know, and the veins would pop out. I thought, dear God, I used to get so involved. And even in the early 40s, I'd get so involved, too, because I was just a little itty-bitty guy, you know. But my dad would argue. I thought it was for real, you know, and I would get all upset. And he'd say, he'd come back and he'd say, "We're just kidding. Don't worry, kid. Don't worry, son. Don't worry. It's not that serious," he would say. He never admitted that it was an act until much later, and I
He was coaching third base. I had a close play where his batter runner hit the ball to the shortstop, and the ball just beat him there. Then his foot, I called him out. Jake Pitler was coaching third base. He ran across the mound over to first base where I was umpiring. He took his hat off, and he's motivating the fans now. He says to me, "Nalbone, everybody tells me you're a good umpire." He's going through these gestures. See, I think you're a good umpire. Everybody tells me you got good eyesight. I think you got good eyesight. He wasn't yelling like I am, see? So when the inning ended, well, let's say, then he put his cap on and went back to third base. So when the inning ended, the plate umpire, Frank Pollock, he was from the Canadian side, he called me halfway. He says to me, "Nalbone, what did he tell you?" "Oh," I says, "he told me I was a good umpire. He told me I had good eyesight." He said, "What?" He said, "It looked like he was killing you." Well, that's the story of Jake Pitler.
The most hated by the fans, and that was Jake Pitler. You know, I was like to see Jake Pitler come to town, because he was good for a couple of bucks. He'd give me a couple of bucks when I'd bring him his towel, and he was very nice. Jack Sanford's a nice guy, but Jake was just about the best, and I really liked him.
He came here for a show.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'll never forget the time. He always carried a dozen baseballs alongside of the dugout. And I hit a home run one day, the whole baseball. He said, "Oh my God!" He threw the baseball. And he said, "Impossible." But he was a fine gentleman.
Did Pitler put on a show for you folks here in Jamestown?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was into it every day.
Everybody wanted to sit on
Every day. He starts something every day. That's what he's doing.
Jake Pitler, we just gave all
he was a show in himself.
Shades of hell, yeah. And I can remember he reacted a lot with the grandstand and with the bleachers.
Oh, he baited the crowd.
Yeah, did he? Oh, geez. I can remember. And we would boo and we would catcall him, you know, and he'd turn around, he'd give as good as he got, you know.
So Pitler, was he a showman?
Oh, God, yes.
Would he get the crowd excited?
Yeah.
How would he do it?
Kick the dirt, and he'd argue with the umpires, and he'd all emotions, and argue with the fans. But he was popular. The people liked it, you know. And it was a rivalry, see? You don't see that today anymore. You say one word, and the ump will throw you right out of the game. They never threw him out, you know. They liked them. I mean, that's what baseball was. See? But it was really something.
55, world champion, Brooklyn Dodgers.
Johnny Podgers pitching brilliant ball. 1 out to go. Elston Howard ground short. Reese throws to Hodges. Brooklyn wins, and the Dodgers go wild as they mob pitcher Podgers, who hurls Brooklyn to its first World Championship.
Not another word.
And all people said to me, how could you have been so calm at such a tremendous moment? Well, I wasn't. I could not have said another word without breaking down in tears.
It was grand, boys. It was just...
Jake was an integral part of the team, not only because he was the first baseman, but he would talk to players. Players liked him, because he's one of the few coaches that didn't have that aloof attitude about him. You could tease him, you could say things, and Jake would just laugh. I remember we played in Chicago, they'd ride down Lakeshore Drive, and they'd yell out, "Jake!" And he'd look at her, "There's the Jewish Navy out there," and he'd laugh. He said, "Well, no, they don't have enough sails on those boats to be our Navy." You know, he wouldn't get angry. You know, he would go along with the joke, and then you'd be there, and it's like my first guy with the Dodgers. I tell people I was the best batting practice pitcher going. They said, "Why?" I said, "Well, they weren't pitching me, so I thought," and I said, "I got fired from that job." Jake Pitler, after 2 weeks, said, "Joe Black, don't you ever come here and pitch batting practice anymore." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You throw too many balls in the stands." I said, "Jake, they're supposed to hit the ball." He said, "Not that many." I said, "What am I batting practice?" So you could feel it. He feels the pain just like everybody else. But he was one of the guys who would come over and encourage you, because when you lose in the big leagues, you can get down. But Jake would tell you, "Hey, there's always tomorrow," and you'd feel good. So you guys who had an opportunity to be around Jake a long time, you're around a great guy, a great American, not just somebody in baseball.
Jake was one of those valuable people with young players. Jake was great with young players. He and Sukaforth were buddies, and they lived together at the Bossard Hotel, and buddied at night after the game. But Jake took most of us under his wing, and in a nice, easy sort of way. Never heard Jake get too excited. He really helped us in the early years. One of the classic stories is told by Vince Scully about Jake Pitler. Jake was a first base coach. He also was in batting practice. He handled the balls and all that, but he coached first base. So he's down there, and Jake was very enthusiastic. Now, he's an old gentleman by this time, or seemed old to me. He's probably younger than I am now. But anyway, he was down at first base, and we're behind, and it's late in the game, and we're trying to get something going. And so we get a guy on. So Jake is exercising. Well, in those days, you only had a couple of cameras, TV cameras, so you didn't have all the coverage. So Scully is describing, he tells this story, the excitement that Jake is showing as a little momentum starts to build. And so now, we get two men on. He said, Jake is going bananas down there. He's jumping up and down, and here's this old gentleman, and he is spry as a young kid. Look. So now the count on the next hitter goes 3-2. And Scully, off camera or somehow through the network, they could speak to the director. He wants him to put a camera on Jake, and he gets this build up, and he says, now, the count's 3-2, and on the next pitch, Jake is doing leapfrogs down there on every pitch because we'll get this thing going. Now we're going to let you see Jake on the 3-2 pitch, and you can tell whether it's a ball or a strike. So Vince said, now we got it all set. They zoom in on Jake. Here comes the pitch, and I guess it was a foul ball or something. And he said all Jake did was reach down and scratch his crotch. And Scully says, I couldn't say, don't look, or wait a minute, that's not what I meant. He said, what would I say? Yeah, I was lying. So he said, Jake really did the one thing you never dreamed might happen, but he said that's what did happen. But Jake was there for years and years, retired. I think when he retired, Greg Mullavey was his replacement. Fine class guy. I didn't have as many years with him as I did Jake, but Jake had a good sense of humor too. We kidded him a lot, but he was always, he'd come in after a ball game in Ebbets Field. We had a big iron door, and when that door would shut, it would just reverberate, and especially if a guy was mad and slammed it. But we'd come in after a game and we'd be celebrating, and Jake would yell out, "Forget that one, we got to win tomorrow." He didn't want you to linger too long on the fun of winning.